Duduzane Zuma has been found not guilty of culpable homicide and reckless and negligent driving charges by the Randburg Magistrates Court north of Johannesburg. This relates to a 2014 incident in which Zuma lost control of his Porsche 911 Turbo and crashed into a minibus taxi on the M1 highway in Johannesburg, resulting in the death of Phumzile Dube, who was one of the passengers in the taxi at that time.
The accused was driving a roadworthy car, and the issue in regard to the condition of it is neither here nor there, as was belatedly argued by the prosecution. It has been established independently that the tires were within the legal limit of 5 centimeters. He was driving at approximately 90 to 100 kilometers. The other road users made the same determination that that same speed was reasonable in the given circumstances. There is no evidence to suggest that the accused firstly should have foreseen the presence of a puddle. The other two drivers didn't see the puddle of water, but we know that when the passengers alighted the minibus after the collision, the water was angled high and covered their shoes. And secondly, there is no evidence to indicate what step he should have taken to guard against aquaplaning. And in particular, no evidence is available to the court to find that the speed to which it might have been set a reasonable driver would have had to reduce his speed in order to avoid what eventually happened. It is therefore found that the state failed to prove the case against the accused beyond reasonable. The version of the accused is found to be reasonably possible too. The accused is found not guilty both in the main and the alternative count.
Well, for more on this story, I'm joined in studio by my colleague Chriselda Lewis, who's been covering this particular story. Thanks very much for joining us. So obviously the court pretty much believed Duduzane Zuma's version of events.
Well, that's right, Nompu. He's always maintained since the very beginning that he could not have foreseen that he was going to cause an accident on that day. It was raining, and he says that his vehicle had basically aquaplaned, basically went into the air after it had hit a puddle of water. He said that he travelled on that road quite regularly, so he did not anticipate on that day when it was raining that his car would aquaplane. So the court seems to believe that, in the sense that there'd been no clear evidence to suggest that, number one, Duduzane Zuma was speeding, and secondly, that he could have foreseen in this instance that he would have caused an accident on the basis that he did not see that there was a puddle of water in the middle of the road on that particular day. So the acting chief magistrate basically says that there's no evidence. The state has failed to prove its case that Duduzane Zuma was negligent on that particular day in 2014.
So how did the family of the lady who passed away immediately at the scene, how did they react?
There was absolutely no reaction, Nompo, from them. That has been consistent with what's been happening since the trial started, and even before that they've refused completely to speak to the media. Every time we've tried to get comment from them, even today, we've had to go through the lobby group AfriForum, which you would recall took up the matter in the form of a private prosecution when the NPA decided it was not going to prosecute in the matter, but then made a U-turn after AfriForum had said that they were going to privately prosecute. So, but just judging from their reactions on their faces, I mean, 5 years later, they were hoping that there would be some justice for Phumzile Dube, who died on the scene. But clearly, Duduzane Zuma walking out of the Randburg Magistrates Court a free man. But I did manage to speak to the one person that's been consistently with him at court, Duduzane Zuma's father, the former president, Jacob Zuma, and he's been maintaining all along that this had been some political conspiracy against his son, trying to get back at him as the former president. Let's take a look at what he had to say after that judgment was delivered.
Please, firstly, and that akazange abe irresponsible my driving motor. Why irresponsible? Isimo esamenza ukuthi kuze kube khona ingozi. Ngicabanga ukuthi inkantolo ibuke kahle lento. Isinqumo senkantolo siyathokozisa.
Oh, obviously, Wakuluma, what was he saying?
Yes, the former president saying he's very pleased with the judgment today, and it's a clear indication that his son was not negligent on the day of the accident. Remember, he's always believed in his son's innocence. He was very vocal, more than Duduzane Zuma himself, about the case itself. When I spoke to the former president today, he says he's elated, and what you would actually have seen in court is that more family members, Nompo, had pitched up at court today to show support to Duduzane Zuma. Previously, it had been just his sister and a few other friends, but today there seemed also to have been some relatives on the side of Duduzane Zuma's wife, if I'm correct on that, and quite the entire front part of the gallery had been taken up by members of the Zuma family. But also, Nompo, you would know that Monday is a very big day for the former president. We were not sure if he would pitch up at court today. He probably knew the media would ask him about his appearance at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, which is scheduled for next week, Monday to Friday. I asked him, whether he was ready to give his version of events, and this is what he had to say.
Eqinisweni ngicelwe iCommission ukuthi ke ngizobeka engase ngikubeke sokuyozwakala khona ukuthi uhamba kanjani ngiyaya khona.
All right, the former president there saying he was called by the commission, so he's going to show up and basically, he says we will see then. So certainly I think there's a lot of expectation for Monday, Nompo, in the sense that the name of the former president has come up several times in the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. I mean, just a few days ago, we saw on the controversial issue regarding the Gupta landing, where the ambassador, Bruce Kolwane, had basically name-dropped the name of the former president Jacob Zuma, who many have speculated over time could have been the individual to have given the go-ahead or asked that the plane land there. So this is the opportunity for the former president next week, Monday, to state his version of events and basically answer to all of the allegations that have been made in the testimonies of various of the witnesses who have so far taken the stand in the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture.
And one wonders whether 4 days is going to be enough, or 5 days.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, he is at the center. He is the man at the center of the setting up of this Commission of Inquiry. I mean that by saying, all of this was set up to try and deal with issues of state capture, of which many have argued, the former president was responsible for. So he finally has his day to say his piece during the course of next week.
We eagerly anticipate what he has today to say. Thanks very much, Chriselda. My colleague there, Chriselda Lewis, who's been covering that court case of Duduzane Zuma.